Do you remember that wedding from a month ago? Yeah, like that one that you needed to start editing yesterday? But you also need to prep today for your wedding tomorrow, and you're leaving for your first vacation in forever on Monday. So what do? It seems that the only creative part of your edits are the excuses you're going to have to give your clients. We have the solution, Wedditor. Wedditor is a team of top wedding editors, project managers, and account coordinators that help us wedding filmmakers edit. They match the right editors with your style so you can spend your time where it matters most, on your business. Nick and I both use Wedditor, and we don't know how we would run our companies without them. It takes a team to build an amazing business, and you shouldn't try to do it all on your own. Head over to howtofilmweddings.com/Wedditor to help you free up your time so that you can focus on growing your brand. Be sure to use promo code HTFW for $50 off your first project. Wedditor, more than freelance, more than outsourcing.
It's almost like you're talking about the crockpot method.
The crockpot method. Love the
crockpot. It's very true.
Method.
It's very true.
I hold true to the crockpot method. It's so important.
Hello and welcome to the How to Film Weddings podcast. My name's John Bunn, and I'm joined today by my good friend, Nick Miller. What's up, Nick?
Oh, not much, man. Just living the podcast host dream life.
Yes, you are.
I sure am. I'm so excited right now. We announced it last week, but John and I will be at Vision Quest in Austin, Texas, October 20th through 22nd. We are so excited to be down there. You know, there's so amazing speakers, Sculpting with Time, Ray Roman, Joe Simon, Aaron Tharp, Brothers Martins, Jordan Bunch, Fiore Films. So many amazing and talented people are going to be teaching, and John and I get to be there, and we have decided that we're now headlining the event.
Yeah, we're on the very tippy top of the event. Right. They're coming to our event, basically. No, it's going to be a ton of fun. I'm so excited about it, and I'm so excited to meet so many of you. I know a lot of you guys are going to be out there, so it's going to be a ton of fun. But today is what we really need to talk about, Nick.
Yes, let's talk about it.
We just finished an interview with Kathryn from Blnk Films. We posted this video that she did a couple of weeks ago, and it has blown my mind.
Yeah, it's a snowstorm, elopement, amazing. Like I said this in the podcast, but it was really like a perfect storm of all of this amazing stuff that happened that she was able to capture. Really, I don't know. I think it's really starting to put her on the map. Like people how did you do this? This is amazing. We were able to ask her a ton of questions from people in our Facebook group just wanting to know things specifically about this film. So we kind of broke it down without watching it on the podcast. So yeah, it was great stuff.
It was an awesome time. She was super great. I say we jump right into this week's episode of the How to Film Weddings podcast.
Okay.
We know the time suck that is searching for the perfect song for your wedding film. MusicBed has spent years collaborating with artists, bands, and composers to make it easier than ever for anyone to find the right song for their video.
With amazing artists like Chapters, Tony Anderson, and The Light, The Heat, MusicBed is the best place for wedding videographers to get licensed music.
Their subscription service was a life changer for me, especially since all of their subscription music is pre-cleared for every social media platform: Facebook, Instagram, Love Stories TV, and my personal favorite, YouTube, all pre-cleared.
And if you are interested in a free month of a MusicBed wedding subscription, head over to howtofilmweddings.com/musicbed. When you sign up, use the promo code HTFW and you will get your first month for free.
Thank you so much, Kathryn Majic, for joining us. I'm really pumped to have you on the show.
Yes.
So many questions from our group, so many good things to talk about today. But before that, why don't you just kind of introduce yourself to the How to Film Weddings community? Tell us a little bit about you, your business, and kind of how you got to where you are today.
Absolutely. Well, first, thank you guys so much for having me on here. It's seriously such an honor. So excited to sit down and chat with you. So my name's Kathryn. I own Blnk Films. I started Blnk Films in March of 2017, almost exactly 2.5 years ago to the day. And throughout these past 2.5 years, I've really given a lot of thought as to everything in my life that led me to being a wedding filmmaker. I never, ever thought I'd be a wedding filmmaker. And when I really point it back, it goes back pretty far, but it started with gymnastics for me. My parents put me in gymnastics when I was 2 years old, just a baby. And what started as a sport that was just for me to get out some extra energy quickly led into a highly intense competitive sport for me. I did gymnastics for 12 years. I was training in the gym 30 to 40 hours a week, going to school part-time.
That's it?
That's it. Going to school part-time, training 2-a-days. And unfortunately, what comes with highly intense sports also brings injuries. And when I was 12 years old, I fractured my spine. I was out of the gym, I think it was like 6 or 8 months or so before I could get back into training. And I went back and competed a season, still had horrible back pain that I thought was just typical. But I went back to the doctor at the end of that season only to learn that I fractured it a second time.
Wow.
So with 2 broken backs and multiple injuries just throughout my gymnastics career, I think having to retire at 14 from the only thing that I loved, like being a gymnast was what I identified with fully. Like, I never thought about my life beyond gymnastics. Everything else was on the back burner for me. So leaving that at 14 and then immediately going into like my high school and college years, that brought like a major time of darkness for me. I was really angry and frustrated. I was so mad that something I loved so deeply was ripped away. And I found a lot of my time like deeply searching for that passion again, that spark. And it led me to go to CU Denver for college with the intention of being a trauma nurse. And I was like so attracted to that intensity, like the thought of working with people in these highly intense moments of their life, these crucial things, like doing something for the greater good was so cool. And I volunteered at Denver Health in the emergency department there. I could see everything that came in through those doors and quickly learned that maybe being a trauma nurse was not for me. I am a major empath. I was taking on the emotions of people as if they were my own. I could not disassociate my time in the hospital and just leave work at work. And during that time, like this college crisis of, what do I want to do with my life? I literally was like browsing on YouTube and came across this video that still to this day only has like 8,000 views. But it's a video by Alan Watts called "What If Money Was No Object?" And when I say like this video changed my life, it genuinely changed my life, because throughout my childhood, I was always like attracted to creativity. I had a creative spirit. My mom was a painter and I was into drawing, painting, whatever. And I realized like, okay, I actually want to try and make something out of this. Let's just dive back into art and see where it takes me. So I replaced my nursing classes with fine art classes, dove into drawing, painting, photography, literally any creative medium I could. And that was the first time since I was 14 that I really started to feel that spark again. I thrive in situations where I can creatively express myself through performance or my art. So sometimes like not having to articulate that and channel that into something else is really, really cool. And when I was in photography, I really started like searching for more. I was just wanting more out of photos that I couldn't get. I wanted to relive those sights that I was capturing, those sounds, all of these emotions that were documented in these photos. And that eventually led me to where I got my degree in digital design. It's essentially graphic design. And that's when I started diving into filmmaking when I was first introduced. I became my own guinea pig, capturing parts of my life, whether it was hiking, travels, like anything I was doing with friends, whatever content I could produce just to edit and play with was like the most fun part of my college career. And that led me to where Blnk Films literally was born. For my senior thesis, we could choose whatever project we wanted to. And I was just like, I really think I want to be a business owner. I filmed my first wedding in college and the couple didn't even contact me. They contacted my second shooter, who's my best friend and films with me now. We filmed our first wedding, had no idea what we were doing. I got like a Zoom that I just put in the grass near the altar. Like I'm surprised that the wedding turned out okay. But throughout that time in college, I filmed like 5 or 6 weddings, and I was like, I'm going to be a wedding filmmaker. I'm just going to go for it. So senior year of college, I started my business, used that as my senior thesis project. So thankful for that time. I had a lot of mentors that believed in my idea, some that really challenged it, didn't think it was worth it. And then I graduated in May of 2017, and here I am 2.5 years later and doing weddings full time. I just knew I did not want to apply for a job after college. It did not fit what I was doing. So long-winded story, but each of those chapters really, really played their specific role in how I run my business and how I approach my work.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, that's really incredible story, and I thank you for taking the time to go through it. I don't think it was very long-winded. I think it was awesome.
Good.
So you start this business 2 years ago, and if you're like most of us, like starting out, it took me 3, 4, 5 years to kind of even just get into my style, find out, figure out, I don't know, just who I was and things like that. I look at your films, and especially one we're going to talk about here in just a little bit, but like, this does not look like work from somebody that is 2 years into filming, and what you're creating is literally feels like magic. And is that how you say your last name?
People in America say Magic, which I think is so fun, but it's actually a Croatian last name, so it's pronounced Majic, but Kathryn Majic is pretty cool. So
yeah, that's where I was going.
I'm just gonna go with that.
I like Majic, it's cool, but Magic is pretty magic.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, so you started this business 2.5 years ago. You're making these films that are incredible. What does 2019 kind of look like for you? How many weddings are you shooting this year? Kind of ballpark what you're charging, what you're including. Give us a little bit of that.
Sure. So this year I have 20 weddings on the books, which is a really happy place for me. I overworked myself in 2018. So coming into 2019, I really just wanted to be more purposeful about the scope of work that I was taking on. So I've been really happy with that number so far. And this year was a big jump in my prices. I feel like my confidence as a filmmaker has really increased from being a baby business to feeling like I have some treads. So right now my packages start at $4,500 and go up from there. My base package includes 6 hours of coverage, 2 filmmakers, 5 to 6 minute highlight film, and then I deliver USB boxes in a cute little package for all my clients. So I offer 3 different packages, and they basically just vary from 6 to 8 to 10 hours of coverage, and then just a longer highlight. And then I offer raw footage add-on, ceremony and toast add-on, additional hours of filming, whatever clients really feel like they want to add on to their film.
I'm pretty sure I charged $4,500 in my second year, Nick. I think it was it was $450. That's right. Yeah, like 1 extra zero. That's incredible. And so
I am in my 7th year of business, and my base package isn't even at $4,500.
Wow.
There you go.
Now I'm just like, shoot.
You're doing great.
I'm saying that to say that you're doing great, and that's amazing.
Thanks,
and that's really a testament to the kind of work that you're putting together and the kind of stuff that you're doing, that you're at a price point like that, and people are paying you for it. So that's fantastic. That's great. So congrats on that. That's awesome.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, and keep killing it, because and it's crazy to me, like I was saying a second ago, just like 2 years in, most people's films feel very vanilla. They're trying to understand the industry and things like that. And so a friend of mine, Christian, he was out at Venture. He sent me a message, I don't know, whenever, a few weeks back. He's like, I don't know if you've heard of this girl, but you should check out this film. And I get that kind of message a lot, as you can imagine, hosting this podcast. And it's like, okay, I'll check it out. And I had a few minutes, and I turned it on, and I couldn't not watch the whole thing. Like, I was just like, John, what is happening?
John texted me your video, and he basically said like, holy crap. And then like just sent it to me. So I don't know, it paused him, and as filmmakers, it's not a diss on anyone else, but because we're in the business, to actually have someone create something and then you actually stop and you want to watch the whole thing, that's a big a big compliment, to you and what you're doing. So, we were both super blown away by that.
Thank you. I was really proud of that video and what it came to be. Obviously, some are more creative than others, but that was one where I really I just took what I was feeling and ran with it.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that we talk about, a lot is this: it only takes one video or one thing that you do to kind of push you in the right direction. And as I watched that, it was like you kind of had a perfect storm. Kind of joking, but seriously, a perfect storm of stuff, because you had
funny.
It is funny because you had the snow stuff was going on, and you had this couple that you connected with, and the couple was also really connected and emotional with each other. And it was like, if you remove any one of those elements, then that film isn't as impactful. And so you were able to capture it beautifully and then tell the story beautifully. And, people might say, well, how did she do that? How do you do that? And you're like, well, I mean, I'm create this thing and I'm good at it, but I also got kind of lucky, that all of this stuff fit together. So anyway, you did a great job on that. Again, I'm sure that you get this question a lot, and we just like to touch base on it before we get into your film. Why don't you kind of go over, what kind of gear stuff that you're using, just real quick, the bodies that you're using and that kind of stuff, just so people can hear that.
For sure. So as a preface, I am not a gear junkie by any means. I don't know how to talk specs. I literally had to look up the lenses that I use before even starting this podcast because I am afraid of gear actually. But I am filming on the GH5 body, and then I have the Voigtlander 25 millimeter, the Panasonic 12 to 35, and then the 35 to 100. And then standard audio stuff. My lav mics are the DR10Ls, tried and true, and then the Tascam 44WL for speeches and whatnot. And then my drone is the Phantom 4 Pro, and then obviously standard lights and a Ronin S, which I have only picked up twice. So
that's awesome.
That's it. Yeah.
We get asked almost after every podcast, hey, did you get their gear list? And and so I think that the gear junkies out there, obviously we love that kind of talk, but the more that we talk to people, especially people that are creating these kinds of films, it's way less about the gear and about what you're doing, how you're interacting with the couple. You said you have a Ronin S and you've picked it up twice, and it's you don't have to be, you don't have to have this fancy toy or tool to make a film that's impactful. It's a lot more about the couple. It's a lot more about the way that you edit it together. I'm going to throw it out there too. I don't think people's films being vanilla, just as earlier, that is still very attractive to their couples, and people think it's awesome and it's great, but to create something that stops somebody in their tracks and is like, holy crap, this is so unique, this is so different, that's the kind of thing that it's like, I'm like, wow. I
think John, maybe when you said that vanilla comment, you're more like 2 years in, people are still really struggling with figuring out, who they are and their style and all of that kind of stuff. And so you're just kind of doing the stuff that you think you should do. So you're still figuring yourself out. And Kathryn being 2.5 years in, and it seems that you have what you want to create, that vision pretty well nailed down now, just 2.5 years in.
I appreciate that. That's something that I've really worked hard on, is just throughout the years, people that I've idled for so long. It's like you watch these films and you're like, oh, I love this about them and I love this about them. And I've realized that you're never going to be able to be that filmmaker. If anything, you're just going to be replicating what they're doing and not be as good at it. So just throughout my years of being so inspired by some of the greats out there, I'm just I've really taken the time to hone in on what makes my voice unique and still figuring that out. It's I can't carry that creativity from Bethany and Drew's Snowy Elopement into every wedding film I do. Some of that just doesn't fit the mold of different couples. So that's more than anything is really just being observant of the couples and their personality types and who they are.
So on the heels of that, I think that a question that just kind of came to mind was, you are so young in the business, and you do have a very clear style. besides just watching other people's films, what type of steps did you take to like really hone in on your style?
I think a lot of that came from getting into filmmaking as a passion project. When I was really just diving deep to find that passion and that fire again, I had a lot of the room and freedom to just create things that I loved. Like, I didn't have the pressure of needing to make money from filmmaking. I was working on the side, and just doing it solely as a passion project gave me the space to play with editing techniques that I maybe would have never done had I had the pressure of a client.
Yeah, that's good.
You know?
And that makes me think about what David with Forestry said on our podcast a couple weeks back, just talking about if he could redo it, he wouldn't take on jobs that he didn't feel like were his couples. He would have gotten a part-time job to cover those bills so he could only do the films that like really spoke to him. He said he would be years ahead in his business if he would have done that.
Absolutely.
And so that's really like stuck with me, and it keeps pounding me in my forehead. And it's like, man, that's very true. And that's, you know, more or less what you're saying is you were able to do crazy fun things because you didn't have the pressure of like needing this to pay the bills and having a deadline on it. And
for sure.
And so you were able to build that out. So I would encourage the listeners, like, do things, even if you are into your business and you have a backlog, take one project a month or do something just to like it's for nobody but for yourself, and like do those kinds of things. I've been doing that with photography lately, and it's like so creative. Like, I just like the creativity of taking photos of things. Like, I've done video for so long, and it just like scratches this, you know, part of my brain that I'm like, oh, I like this creativity, and it's made my films better because I'm just in that creative space instead of in just like this, okay, I've got another one to do, I've got more backlog, I've got another, and that will be the death of your business if you're not careful. So
for sure.
Anyway, great point. Okay, I want to, Nick, if you're okay with it, I want to start talking about this snowy elopement film.
I guess that's okay. That's fine.
I mean, it's funny. I posted it in our Facebook group. I don't know if you know, Nick, we have a Facebook group. Just search How to Film Weddings. Boom. Join. But I posted it in the group, and it kind of went nuts. Like, people are watching this and like, holy crap. So I posted today in our group, like, hey, we're going to have Kathryn on the podcast. And that blew up with a lot of questions. So I want to spend the rest of the time just answering those questions. But before we do that, I would love, Kathryn, if you could kind of just set up for somebody that hasn't seen this film. We'll obviously, you know, link it in our show notes for people to watch, but maybe set up this film. Tell me about the couple, any of the details leading up to the wedding, where it was, all that kind of good stuff about the film.
Sure. So this was one of the most laid-back couples I've ever had. They actually found me through another snowy elopement film that I had done last year that actually gained quite a bit of traction. And she loved the intimacy of that, how much nature had tied into the entire day. Bethany and Drew have been together for 10 years, and their family's coming from Alaska. They really wanted something that was just rooted in who they were as a couple. And she said that nature has just inspired so much of their love and their love story. And so when she first emailed me, it was basically like, I am obsessed with this video of yours. I want to carry that into my day. We're getting married in April. You never know what the weather is going to be like here in Colorado at that time. So they were doing a sunrise elopement. And when the wedding day came, the weather was insane. Leaving home, it was clear outside, and then we get to the top of the pass, and I am barely staying on the road. The snow is blowing, it's pitch black. Myself and Jill, my second shooter, we were the first to get there, and we were just like, oh man, like, I have never seen weather this intense. And at that point, I just leave it in the couple's hands. I'm very into that stuff, so I'm like, I am going to do whatever I need to do to make this work, but I was really waiting to just feed off of the energy that she was putting off when she arrived. And they get to the pass, meet us there, and she gets outside with the biggest smile on her face, and she's like, okay, it's cold, but let's do it. And awesome. So we waited out. That's like really what the beginning of the film is inspired by, when we were just in our cars embracing this cold and having no idea what the day was going to bring. So it was really important for me to preface everything that led to this gorgeous blizzard at the most beautiful location where they didn't even intend on getting married in the first place. So we drove down the road and found this incredible river, and the snow had slowed down, the sun had came up, and everyone snowshoed into this location, and it just ended up being this perfect, happy accident that was everything that they could have wanted and more. And then come the couples session, that's when the snow really picked up again, and I felt like I couldn't even feel my hands for half the day. So
I'm sure, I bet.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, I mean, this is an elopement in Colorado in the mountains. The film itself, I'm not going to explain the whole thing, but I mean, lots of snow, lots of beautiful nature, a very intimate vibe between the couple, just what they're saying, the tears, the clinking of, hot chocolate cups and all the water melting with ice and this, and just you incorporate, footage of the weatherman and like just there's so much to this film. So that kind of tees it up for, just some of these questions about it. And obviously, if you haven't watched the film, pause the podcast, watch it, or just watch it right after you get through listening here. But inside of our Facebook group, we usually do a question of the day. We're just going to ask you a lot of questions of the day. And it's always presented by Wedditor. If you're looking for somewhere to outsource, it's the best place to do that. It's more than outsourcing, but definitely check out Wedditor. The first question that I have, it's from Peter Aponte. He says, how much time did you spend on this edit?
So it's probably not as much time as most of anyone thinks it took. I am actually someone who works, my brain doesn't really start working until I'm under pressure or until I'm fully inspired by one nugget of the day. So edits can take me anywhere from, I could get an edit done in 4 days or 4 weeks. It really depends. So this edit was kind of somewhere in between. And once I had that first minute down, I was just unstoppable. I loved working on that film so much that the first minute took me about 2 weeks to really just sit on and reevaluate. And then once I had that nugget of inspiration to move forward, I think I finished the rest of the film in 3 full work days. So probably 20 to 30 hours ish.
Got it. Got it.
And one of the things that I love about, that edit, especially, the more that I do this and the longer that I do, I don't know, I was probably 5 years in before I figured out, the importance of sound design and adding in, those sound, the wind, the stepping on snow, whatever that stuff is. And that was one thing as I was watching this, I really appreciate. I could tell all of the sound stuff that you had taken time to capture and put in and find and whatever. So that adds so much to that one.
Oh, for
Love
sure.
that kind of stuff. So that's great. James Blankenfeld asked this question. What's your prep like going into a wedding? How much time do you spend getting to know the couple ahead of time? When you're filming, is a lot of it, just kind of, here's this idea I'm going to run, off the cusp, or is it more pre-planned for the day? So kind of what's your approach with that?
For sure. It's a great question, and I do not have a set process. It really is just dependent upon the couple because everyone's weddings are different. Their wedding planning process is different. So I really like to run with whatever the couple needs. I am there for as much support or as little support as they are comfortable with. So no matter what, I always send a questionnaire to my couples about 2 weeks before the wedding just to get down once timeline logistics are in place and really more intimate questions about what they want their wedding day to feel like, what's most important to them. Those are things I like to have in writing so that when I go back to my editing process, I know what are musts for me to include that film. But as far as upon booking up until the wedding day, there are some couples that inquire and they're just we want you, we're ready, that's all we need. And then I'm there for communication throughout the process. Some people want to hop on the phone, some people want to meet in person. So I like to ride that wave with them of whatever they're comfortable with and however much time they want to invest beforehand. I find that no matter how much time I could spend getting to know them, to see a couple, how they interact on one of the most special days of their lives with everyone that's closest to them, there are nuggets of people's characters that you see that you couldn't have pulled out in a few months getting to know them, I just think being observant is the best thing that you can possibly do for yourself to carry that into the personality of their film.
Yeah, that's huge. That's really good. I like how you said how you kind of meet them where they are, wherever they are. You know, if they want to be chatty a lot, you're chatty a lot. If they don't, then you don't. You know, I went to this conference a few weeks ago. And one of the guys that was speaking, he was talking about when we get emails and like that kind of stuff. And you know, he said, you know, if you get an email that's like very high energy, lots of exclamation points, then that kind of can tell you something about the person, right? And how you should respond with high energy and lots of exclamation points. But you know, you get the one line people, they're like, "Dear Nick, how much do you cost?" The end. Yeah. Then like that's how they communicate. So you just need to respond kind of, you know, the same way. So I love that was a side point that really didn't have anything to do with what you were talking about. But
Nick never does that.
Never.
We never do that. I've never done that either.
No, but I love how you are self-aware enough to know that they, you know, you're willing to be the kind of person that they need to be on the day. So that's huge. That's huge.
Yeah, for sure. So, and that's never sacrificing like my business integrity or who I am as a person. It's really just feeding into what they need. You know, I've realized like going through being on the other side, planning your own wedding, or like my sister or closest friends who are getting married, I'll hear them talk and they're like, I don't necessarily have time for an hour and a half Skype session, and that's not something I feel like I need, you know? So I think it's a good tactic to kind of carry in, and to each their own. For some people, they love having that nailed down, but it really just depends.
Yeah. And I think on the heels of that, one of the questions that Allison Harms in our group kind of asked, it's more specific, but like before process with this couple, she says, I've watched her other films and you just know the couple so well. That's kind of answered in the question before, but like what specifically was the process with this couple in this film?
They honestly, it was purely email exchange, and my first time meeting them was on their wedding day, which from their film you wouldn't necessarily pick up on that, but she communicated all of the right things that I knew exactly, like I could run with this creatively, and she trusted me. So she was just a very like matter of fact bride, not high maintenance, just wanted to hang out, meet on the wedding day, and go from there.
And I mean, somebody doing an elopement in the mountains with 10 or 12 people, the vibe of that, you know, I just did basically an elopement, but like an out of the country wedding with like 18 total people, and they were there for a week. And like, there's a different level of intimacy that you can get with that than you can with just showing up to a ballroom wedding. So, I mean, it's like you said in the previous question, you know, working with the specific people based on their needs and their wants, and someone that's chill and like is cool with standing out in the freezing snow all day long, you know, or whatever, like they're going to be, you know, that intimate of a wedding. You don't need as much, you know, they're going to be intimate on their wedding day. They're not trying to impress 300 friends. And so, you know, you just have to be aware when you're doing these kinds of things. It's like, know the couple is basically what I'm hearing.
Absolutely. I mean, even beyond knowing the couple, there are cues, like just to kind of tiptoe off of what we were previously talking about. Things that I take away from the wedding aren't always necessarily from the couple themselves. I mean, it's great to see how they interact and what their love languages are, but even like music that they're playing at their wedding, their relationship with their parents, or how their friends are acting, or how like the vibe of the reception and the party is. There are so many things, especially music, just that I feel like I can get a really good grasp onto just their overall personalities and really pull that out in their film.
That's really good. I think a lot of times we're so in our cameras and just not paying attention that it's like we get back to the edit, and a lot of us have a big backlog, and so it's like 3 months later, it's like, oh yeah, what was this couple like, or what, instead of just like taking just like a few minutes to grab some of those cues and make some notes maybe right after the wedding of like they listened to this song for their first dance, they did this, they did that, and just paying attention to those social cues with their family and their friends, and like, you know, I mean that makes total sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So more specifically back to, you know, this edit, this wedding day in the snow, Megan Brown asked, how did you handle the gear in the cold and trekking through the snow and all that stuff? Like you said, your hands were freezing and you couldn't feel them. Like, was it like the most awful, awesome thing, or awesome, awful thing, you know, from like that aspect?
It was the most awesome, awful thing. Any like feelings that I had to put aside, and any of the gear that I brought that I may have intended to use didn't even make its way out of the bag, because you're working in this snowstorm, and especially with elopements, like all of them are different. You don't know when these moments are gonna happen, as you can like sometimes anticipate in more of a traditional wedding. Mm-hmm. So I honestly was just holding my hands as close to me as I could, and my hands were shaking, like as sometimes I was just like capturing moments during their ceremony. So there were times like during their couples session where we'd go out, shoot for 5 minutes, get back in the car for 10, warm back up. But that was a situation where it's like you cannot get fancy or plan out any type of shot that you may have intended. Mm-mm. You just have to run with what's happening. And those always end up being like some of my favorite films, because it really just forces you to dive deep into the edit. Yeah. As you're editing and like make something that may have been nothing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It makes you realize if you're good or not at what you do. It's like, because if you don't know how to handle that, so like handling the gear, I guess, so trekking through the snow. We also had another question that just came in on the Facebook group, just kind of what steps did you take to protect your equipment, that kind of stuff. Are you just out there hoping, or are you like covering? What'd you do to just keep everything safe?
I've worked with rain covers like over my camera in the past, and I just hate them. It's so hard to even like see through the viewfinder, and you can't even like focus your lens. So I've ditched those. And the awesome thing about the GH5 is it's like it's not like waterproof, but it's weatherproof. So it is, mm-hmm. It can handle a lot of those elements. Mm-hmm. But that's where I just really stick to my primary setup. I shoot solely handheld. Mm-hmm. Any of my sweeping like tracking shots on a stabilizer on my second shooter, but she didn't even pull out her stabilizer at all either. We snowshoed in. It was only a couple 100 yards, but I just was like, okay, camera, lens, second lens, and then like my mics, and that's what I worked with the whole day. So everything else was just like in a little side bag that I have, but my camera held up great, so I wasn't too worried about that.
So tell me, what CRM do you use? If you're not sure or you don't know what a CRM is, I'm about to save you a lot of time and therefore money. CRM stands for Customer Relationship Management. Basically, a CRM is an online service that helps you better serve your clients. HoneyBook is both mine and John's CRM of choice. We absolutely love it. HoneyBook allows us to do all of our correspondence, contracts, and payments all in one place. One of the features that I love is the automated workflow. We all have emails that we send out to all of our clients, right? At 6 months, 3 months, 1 month, the week of. All of us do it. Automated workflows make it so that those emails can go out automatically. Since I don't have to take time to, 1, remember to send them out, and 2, to write them, I save time and make more money by working more efficiently. Are you interested in saving time on the business side of things? Go to howtofilmweddings.com/honeybook for a free 1-week trial. Also, because the Honeybooks really like me and John, we can give you $200 off of your first year, and that also comes with a 60-day money-back guarantee. So what are you waiting for? Go to howtofilmweddings.com/honeybook to start saving lots of time in your business. Oh yeah, legally I have to tell you that John and I are affiliates of HoneyBook. Jordan Genty asks, are you mostly handheld? Were you mostly handheld, or is that how you...
I am handheld every wedding that I shoot 100% of the day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a thing that I'm super jealous about the GH5 with that internal stabilization and just how
incredible
and how amazing it is. So, anyway, so handheld, love it.
Yeah.
So freeing, and especially with it being such a small camera body too. Like it's just, yeah.
It's especially with my style of shooting. Like if it weren't for my second shooter, I'd forget to get mid and wide shots throughout the entire day. I love just like as close up as close can get. Really just like playing with manual focus and getting in there, it's just, I feel so free. I'm very much like David from Forestry Films, or like Josh from A Little Long Distance. I'm so inspired about how they approach their work too. And I identify so much with just feeling free by being handheld. I think there are shots I wouldn't be able to get if I weren't handheld, you know?
I actually saw like an Instagram thing that you did of this couple that was kind of like dancing kind of close together that you posted on your Instagram. They're kind of spinning around, or you were spinning around them. And I really like that. So my wedding this last Saturday, I had them do something like that so I could try to capture something like that. So
awesome. Yeah. Super
that's
fun.
It. That's my story. This kind of leads into another question you just mentioned, David and Josh, about, people. And so that you look up to. And Jared Sullivan asks, who inspires you as an artist? Maybe who are some of the people that you kind of look up to?
It's a great question because there's different categories. There's wedding filmmakers and just artists in general. I think wedding filmmakers who have really inspired me to push myself and find my voice since the beginning was Riccardo Fasoli. His cinematic style is just mind-blowing to me. I adore his style. Also, Sebastian from Super Weddings is insane. He does things that I've never seen happen in wedding videos at all. He's so creative. Josh from A Little Long Distance blows my mind. He hits that nostalgia better than anyone I know. I mean, the list goes on. White and Reverie, Forestry Films, they are all such fantastic filmmakers. But as far as where I gain a lot of my inspiration, I find that the further into the wedding industry I get, like we were talking about earlier, the less I actually want to sit down and watch wedding films. I think partly to just save myself from falling into the trap of comparison. It's really easy to watch someone's work and doubt your capabilities, or unintentionally mock their style, so I try and stay away from that as much as possible, and channel a lot of my inspiration from musicians and philosophers, and it's amazing where you can grab inspiration from as far as just filmmaking goes. So I carry a lot of my inspiration from a lot of different sources. Yeah.
It's awesome. All those people you mentioned, I'm also big fans of, but the more that I'm in it, the more I'm trying to just pull from my experiences and my heart, as opposed to just I saw White and Reverie did this, or, whatever. And so that's we've said before in the podcast, it's good to be, especially at the beginning, kind of looking and seeing whose styles you like and being oh, I love that. I want to try that. This resonates with me, but not just being okay, let me find out what's trendy and try to do that. And then you're always kind of chasing the thing that, you know, and so the more that you do this, the more that you kind of really, our question, and, today in the group was what's your why? And it's you realize, why you're doing what you're doing, and you can really play towards that. And then you can reach more people that really care about that why. And you can detract, people that aren't that why. And so that's really cool to hear, for sure. I want to jump into talking about your edit for this, because it's not your traditional edit. There's lots of pieces to it. I'm going to ask a couple of these questions, and then we'll get into some of these details. But Richard Ney says, was it all intentional, or did it come about in the editing room? Did you go into the film, this elopement, intentionally trying to grab certain shots for an edit you had in mind, or did you just shoot a bunch and then edit based on kind of what you felt after? So
unless a couple requests anything specifically, I never plan anything before a wedding day. And with Bethany and Drew's their elopement, there was no room to plan, because had we have planned before, it would have been ruined by the weather. So a lot of it, throughout the wedding day, I don't want to be distracted by things I feel like I have to get, I gather so much inspiration just as I'm shooting. Obviously, I have things I know in my mind that I'm going to use in my final edit more than other parts of the day. But I mean, if there's a situation where I need to direct, where I'm I know I'm going to use this and this is going to enhance the film, I'll direct that and we'll make it happen, obviously, if they're comfortable with it. But everything I do, I would say 90% of what I do comes alive in the edit. I think that's where I really come alive as a filmmaker. Just having that time to myself to craft this story that I'm inspired by, that really enhances who the couple is and what their day was about. So that film specifically, Bethany and Drew's, fully came alive in the edit, 100%.
Yeah, it's really cool. Awesome. It's really cool. Tyler Carlson asks, did you use stock footage for this one? And then what about the spoken word dialogue? Where'd the non-wedding stuff come from?
Yeah, so I definitely used stock footage, and that was an interesting thing to play with, because a lot of like making that work in your film, you have to put it in there purposefully, you know, because it can look really out of place if you don't compose it well. So that stock footage, I always make sure everything's royalty free. That stock footage came from Pexels and Pixabay. And then like that spoken poem at the end. The first poem was her mother-in-law reading a poem. And then the second poem was from archive.org. There's a lot of royalty-free stuff on there, and I knew that I wanted some sort of poem that really just talked about nature to bring those elements to life. So that took hours upon hours of searching for that, to incorporate that in there.
So tell us about like a couple of the shots that were stock footage, and how you went about, like, were you in the middle of the edit and you're like, oh, I wish I had a shot of this, and then you start to go look for it? Or did you like go to these sites, look at footage, and then get inspired? What was the process there?
So much of those decisions really come, like, it sounds so cheesy, but they really just come from my heart, and it's not something that I intend on using when I start the edit. But as these emotions come to life and you're really upplaying this excitement, like in that video where they're like popping the champagne, and then I start using all of these overlays and really making you feel what that moment felt like, I got to a point where I was just like, I need something epic that I don't have. Like, and when she's talking specifically in her vows about, I never would have seen the ocean if it weren't for you, or like those specific things, I really wanted that to be the focus and enhance that with a visual. So the flowers blooming, it's like finding like this hope and this power in their love that I needed to portray in something that I didn't have. And once I captured that feeling and knew what it was, like finding the stuff was pretty easy, because I'm just like, I know that I want these like hyperspeed flowers blooming. I know that I want like drone footage of the ocean, which I can't get being in Colorado. So that's where I love having those resources, when they can really bring the video to a next level. Yeah,
that's really cool. And I will say that it did very much enhance the film itself. It wasn't like you just were trying too hard, you know. It wasn't like, well, that didn't make sense. It looks cool, but it doesn't make any sense. It really did enhance it. And so if you are, you know, playing with this idea in your films, make sure that it is something that like flows with your vision, instead of just like trying to emulate Kathryn or someone. You know, it's like, if you're going to bring in some of the stuff, be listening to what's being said, or finding something that says what you want it to say, and then, you know, overlaying footage based on that. And so because I think that like things come and go in our industry. You know, speed ramping was really big for a minute, and like everyone speed ramped 10 times in their wedding films, and it like didn't like do anything, you know, or drone footage was really, you know, it's, you open every single wedding with a drone shot, and that's what you do, and like, or whatever. But it's like, stop thinking like the normal, like get over in your own box and say, this is what I want to create. How can I do that? As opposed to like, let me try to, I think if I bought some birds flying, I could like incorporate that maybe, or, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think just there's so much power in approaching each edit with the goal to make it different. Like, it's funny, when I was with that film specifically, I was like talking to my husband, and I'm like, I just want each film to be better than the next. And he's like, I'd maybe rephrase better and replace it with different. And I loved that he said that, and it's really inspired me moving forward, because you can put so much pressure on yourself when you finish a film, or like one that gained attention like that means so much to me. But I know not every film I make I'm going to be able to do that with, or things that I incorporated in that film aren't necessarily going to fit someone else's. So that's a goal of mine moving forward, is make each film different. Don't try and make it better just because I don't like thinking that one wedding film like needs to be better than your last, you know, because that's a really special day for people. And I just think making it your goal to make it different and complement them is like really cool to carry into your career.
Yeah. And so that kind of leads to the next, I mean, there's some more editing questions and things like that, but I think that like moving towards talking about like how you've built this brand around, you know, Blnk Films, and like there's this vibe when you go to your website and your Instagram and everything, and it's like very, it's not like a dark and moody or anything like that, but it's just like, it's very you, and it's very refreshing, and it's like, it seems as though your Instagram account, every time I go back to it, is more and more and more people following it, and you're getting all this traction. Why don't you talk just a little bit about like how you've been protective of what your brand feels like and what you're doing and to grow it, I guess. So to like grow your social media following, those kinds of things.
Great question. I love that question. And I'm so thankful for my major for that reason, because getting a degree in graphic design has saved me a lot of money being able to do all of that stuff myself. So having like a good foundation and education in branding and really targeting your audience and setting yourself up for exactly how you want to portray yourself has really helped me, I think, grow my business at the rate that it's growing. I knew like going in how important those like target points are in your brand, of really having a website that stands out, something like everything from your visuals to your writing, how you write, like couples pick up on that. And that's why I think it's so important to really just not hold back. You know, we're in an industry that's very like intimate, and you're putting yourself out there and you're getting close with people than you would in a corporate job. So that's something like me being like a very emotional and passionate person, I knew that I had to portray that in my business and who Blnk is, because that's exactly the type of people I want to attract. I don't care what kind of weddings I attract. It's way more about the couple and how they guide their love and what they want out of their film. So really keeping those things in mind about like how I portray myself and how I design my website were super important to me.
Yeah. And it really does show. And I think that, so like we talk about this a lot about, like Nick said it earlier, like it just takes one, it just takes like to really potentially make it where you can pop and you can get noticed. I don't know what's going on in my throat. Sorry guys. It's like, anyway, CrossFit, you know how I do. Anyway, so like it just takes one, right? It does. And so like if your film, like if I would have gone to your Instagram page after watching this film and that was the only film you put in the world, or the last thing you posted before that was like a random picture of a hamburger or something that didn't make any sense. Like I didn't get this. I felt like I knew you and your vibe before we hit record today, before I met you, because of the way that you curated what you were saying about yourself without saying it about yourself. And so there's so much, you know, psychologically with that. But like when you post, you know, that film, I don't know how long you had, like when did you post that film?
It was just a couple weeks ago. I don't even think it's been a month since I posted
so like,
that.
From when you posted it to when I reached out to you, how long was that?
I think it was either a couple days or a week, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so like the work that you had put in, like leading up to that, you know, you're growing a follower base, you have a few hundred, you know, 1,000 or 15, whatever. You're posting these films, you're getting this audience, and it just takes one person that I know that is watching this that I would trust their opinion, that sends me this, and then boom, we share it with our thousands and thousands of listeners, and it's like they're like, wow, this is awesome. And if you wouldn't have put in that work to build to that point, that opportunity might not have presented itself. And if you didn't have the base, you probably would have just, you know, nobody would have followed you. But I'm sure a lot more people are following you now because of that.
John,
sorry, Nick.
It's almost like you're talking about the crock pot method.
The crock pot method. Love the
it's
crock
very
pot
true.
method.
It's very true.
I hold true to the crock pot method. It's so important.
Because I think we get like really worried about like, you know, you don't have 100,000 followers, you have a few thousand followers, but the ones that are following you right now, like they're interacting with your films, they're liking them, they're sharing, it's growing and growing. And you just never know that like if you just keep putting in that work,
yes, like
sooner or later, once you do hit that video that's just like the one, you know, and you can get it shared to that right spot, boom, it kind of catches on. And then who knows, you know, you will book so many weddings from that wedding. And I'm sure you've already gotten, you know, like 2020 is already getting full. Mm-hmm. And that causes you to be able to raise your prices and serve your couples better and,
for sure,
you know, live a happier life, have more freedom, and so like encouragement to the listeners out there, if you've got 200 followers or 12 followers or whatever, that doesn't matter. Keep putting in that work. Throw that roast in the crock pot, let it simmer. You know what I'm talking about?
Well, and that's something I really like. I want to drive in that point so hard, because Instagram in itself, like that's an entire conversation. And I think it's so important to not get so caught up in that, you know, like people tie so much of their business worth into Instagram, the numbers that they have. And I promised myself from the beginning, like starting an account, getting my username Blnk Films, having 0 followers, 0 posts yet, I knew from the beginning that I wanted to build like a genuine following. And it's taken a long time, you know, I mean, I'm thankful for each and every person that follows me out of that 2,600 or whatever it is now. But I like the amount of interaction that I have and the amount of people that I've met and people diving into my work and following my work, that means everything to me. I never wanted to use like bots or any like Instagram pods to just grow my Instagram for the sake of growing my Instagram. I use it as a tool. Yep. And if I ever find myself like getting caught up in it, I just shut it down, walk away. You know, I like, it's so important for your business to be able to stand on its own if Instagram were to die tomorrow, you know?
Yeah. There's you're absolutely right, Kathryn, in how we kind of tie our worth into really meaningless numbers. You know, I mean, if you really think about it that way, and John and I have said this since we started talking, you know, about social media and stuff, we would much rather have 100 dedicated followers that could potentially be our clients that would want to work with us. We would much rather have that than have 100,000, you know, that just liked our stuff and commented or just saw it, but they didn't share it or talk about it or pass on it. Like, that's so much more important in having a business, is, you know, that reach that you have and potentially working with more people. Absolutely. Yeah. So, you earlier when you were talking, I had a thought I was going to say, and John moved on, and so I didn't get to say it.
I'm so sorry for hosting the podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
That's it. We're done.
And you know, I can tell you that it would have been a really, really good question, but he kept talking, and I forgot what it was going to be. But I promise you, just pretend that I asked you something very profound and very deep, and you just answered it very profound and very deep. I don't know what I'm saying here.
That's good, Nick. This is good. So we're like 60 episodes in, and we still don't know what the heck we're doing. We can just be honest, right, Nick?
No, you guys got it. You're killing it. I just binge listened probably to like, I went on a road trip to Montana, and I probably listened to like 10 or 15 episodes while I was on my road trip. So,
well, glad we could go with you.
Yeah, you guys came with me the whole way.
No, it honestly, like this kind of conversation with people like you, this is why we love this community.
Yeah.
Like being introduced to people that are new. I mean, the people that might be listening to this episode that are in their first week or first month of shooting weddings that we'll interview in 2 years or whatever, like that's the kind of stuff that we love with this community, the openness of like helping one another, because when it comes down to it, like it's nice to impress each other, but like what pays the bills are when people are sharing your films and hiring you to work for them. Yes, Nick thought of it.
I thought of it. It was back.
I thought of it. You just remembered because I said it.
Well, it was back whenever, Kathryn, you were talking about how your husband said you don't want your video to be better, you want it to be different. You know, he was like talking different, and you know, just about that's a great way to come at, you know, with your clients and serving your clients and trying to do something not to one up yourself and be better, but to give them a film that is, unique to that couple and fits that couple, where they watch the video and they say, hey, this is beautiful, I love it, and it's also us. It's not, so that was a point I was going to make. I was probably going to ask a question, but
that was so profound.
It was.
That was good.
It was. It was good. Super. It was a super deep nugget.
Good. I'm happy. I'm happy you remembered it.
You and your deep nuggets.
Oh man.
But anywho, it was really apparently, Nick, just so you know, just a little word that I didn't know until I started reaching out to Kathryn. She was actually at Venture Workshop this last year, and so was I. But I don't know if you know. She told me she was just. What were your words? Because I didn't. I thought I met everybody there. What did you say happened?
We've talked about this. I hate to say it. I was intimidated. Okay, I was intimidated to introduce myself. I could say that about most of the people there. I mean, like I said, being in a room with so many awesome, talented filmmakers, you're kind of just overwhelmed for a minute. And I really had to just take a step back and observe. And I'm not an extremely extroverted, outgoing person. I'm kind of one of those people you have to get to know to get comfortable. So I just went into my shell and didn't say anything.
I wish I would have gotten to meet you and know that we were in the same room for a week together. Yeah. But I will say this to listeners: if you are it is totally cool to reach out to someone that you want to know more about and just see if they have any. We've mentioned it on the podcast before, but just if you're a big fan of a certain company, reach out and just tell them that you think they're awesome, or reach out, because this community is, for the most part, so very, very helpful to each other. And we've said it again and again, but if we're all making each other better, we're going to be able to, the rising tide, kind of situation where we're all going to get better. We can all charge more. We can have a better relationship with the industry and be looked at as something that's a necessity and not a luxury. So,
community over competition always. I think especially being your own business or working for yourself or working from home, it's so easy to get caught up in that and forget that these relationships are incredibly important. And exactly like you said, us diving in and building those relationships, which is a goal that I'm carrying into, and networking and making myself uncomfortable, it's aided so much into the growth of my business. So I can't dive into that enough and express that enough, how important it is to just do things that make you uncomfortable.
So good. Very wise.
Well, you don't need to feel too bad. I know John was really intimidated to meet me, and he was scared to talk to me.
That is 100% not true.
Okay, 100% not true. Yeah, well, whatever. Anyway, Kathryn, we're about, to run out of time. So if there's anyone listening that, doesn't follow you, doesn't, where can they check out your work? Where can they get to know you a little bit? That kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. So website is blnkfilms.com, Instagram @Blnk Films. I'm on Vimeo, just started diving into YouTube. I
saw that. I'm one of your. I'm your 11th subscriber.
Subscribers, really, really making a name for myself. So, everything is just @Blnk Films.
Pretty and it's BLNK, right?
BLNK.
There's no I.
There's no I.
Okay, cool. Well, definitely check out Kathryn's work, follow her, get to know her a little bit. If you haven't seen this amazing elopement, snowy, awesome storm of a video that will blow your mind, check it out. Definitely watch that. If you're watching this on YouTube or wherever, we have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/howtofilmweddings. You should subscribe, share this video or this podcast with people that will like it. Do all of this stuff that we always tell you to do at the end of the podcast. And until next time, we'll see ya.
See ya.